and welcome to Two Old Chicks Who Know a Lot of Shit, Season 2, Episode 3. Wow, huh, Wanda? I'm Tina McElroy, Ansa, and I'm here with my pal, my friend of more than 50 years, and my podcast partner, Wanda Lloyd. Hey, Wanda, how you doing?
I'm just happy to be here today. Look here, are we not the two busiest old chicks you've ever seen?
Y'all should see us when we are trying to get together on dates on our couch. No, can't do that then because I'm doing that. Wanda, you can't do it either because we're doing this over here. Oh my goodness, we are. I love
It's
it.
just
I love it.
amazing, just amazing. And when other people call me or text or email and say, "Well, can I call you about this?" Or can I? I'm like, hold on, I gotta check my calendar. It's getting pretty full.
And you check your Google calendar, and I check my real calendar. Wonderful. You sent me this.
No. Don't call it the real calendar. It's paper or Google because you can't say that's real. You don't. I would
Real to me. It's realer than Google.
like to see the poll of the percentage of people who are using paper calendars versus a digital calendar.
Absolutely. I bet you. I know y'all would win, though. Yeah. Well. Anyway, well, we're going to have a great show today. A great episode. I am so excited about the conversation that we're having today in honor of Black History Month and all that is going on. We're going to be talking about something that's near and dear, not only to my heart, but especially to my podcast partner's heart. And that's because we're going to be discussing her memoir, Coming Full Circle. From Jim Crow to journalism. You ready?
Well, Tina, I'm ready for this. This month is my 2-year bookversary. Wow. 2 years since my memoir was published. Can you believe that?
I cannot. It's amazing. You mentioned it earlier, and I actually went back. I said, well, wait a minute. 21. I said, oh, absolutely. It was February of 2020, of 2020.
2020, right.
Yes. And when I say we, because I was going to go along for the ride, we had a whole a plan for a book tour. And, 2020 in February, you know what happened? Things shut down about March. Wanda got in one or two good in-person readings.
Right, a little more than that. I did 4 states in 6 weeks, and I had multiple reading talks in some of the cities that I went to. So, I had a little bit of a book tour, but all I can say is it's just a blessing. It's to be on this virtual tour, and it's still going on because I'm still on the journey. I'm still scheduling things. I'm still adding things to my calendar.
Well, I have to tell y'all, as a matter of fact, I talked to my library in Macon, and they had wanted me, but they also wanted to talk to Wanda. So I haven't even told Wanda. about things that are going on because we are, and we're so grateful for it. As a matter of fact, that's one of the things I wanted to talk to y'all about.
I'm getting my calendar, Tina. I'm pulling it up. Macon, here we come.
Absolutely. So, we're going to do our check-in. Let's do that first, what we always do. And so, Wanda, do you want to go first?
Oh, sure. I'll go first. So, we talk about mentoring all the time, and you know how important that is to me, to be a mentor. And I wrote in my memoir that it's important to me partly because I did not have a mentor when I was young. And so I met 2 new young people in the past week, over the last few days. And I have adopted 2 more, what I call children. One of them called me to write a letter of recommendation, and one of them called because she got a job offer in a city that I used to be an editor in. And she just wanted some guidance on how to go about her interview and a little bit about the city, the community. So that's my check-in. Still mentoring after all these years.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Well, that's always interesting that mentees seem to find us no matter where we are. The ones who are supposed to be our children are supposed to be for us. Well, my check-in on my paper calendar is something that I wrote down a couple of days ago, because Wanda said to me, has said to me a couple of times recently, is, yeah, Tina was on Twitter all night long. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Ask Tina about that. She's on social media. And I thought about it. And one of the things that I wanted to share with our audience is that I'm there, intentionally. One of the things that I want to do is to continue to be visible. I want to continue to be seen. I want to continue to let people know that I'm not just down here on St. Simon's, just in my garden, that I'm writing and, publishing and, looking for ways to sell more books. And, as a publisher, looking for ways to support my little school. So, I want to be on the stage. The joke is that baby boomers don't know when to leave the stage, and you and I, you and I are poster girls for that, poster children for that. But I want to be visible on the stage, not just visible, but available to people. That's what I mean when I want to be visible. I want to be seen, not just for my work, but I want to be seen to say, oh yeah, she's still there. Let's reach out to her. Or Tina went through that, when I knew her back in college, maybe you need to reach out to her and she can tell you. So that being on Twitter, you're right. And you are noticing that I'm there more. And I'm just, I'm being visible, and I want our audience to spread too. Of course, I want two old chicks to have what did you say, Wanda, in a meeting we had? You want our audience to grow exponentially?
I don't remember what I said, but that sounds good. But I will say this, Tina, when of course I follow you on Twitter, but I have you set up in my notifications as one of my, I don't know what it's called because I set it up so long ago.
Yeah.
Well, but I get everything you tweet. Yeah. I see it. And so everybody who knows me well knows I go to bed early. I conk out around 8 o'clock at night. I'm just gone. So I'm not paying attention to all those tweets as you're sending them. But when I wake up in the morning and I reach for my phone, it's just ding, 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 ding. It's Tina. She's been tweeting all night. But what
y'all know that as opposites, as resident opposites, I'm a night owl, and Wanda, of course, is an early bird. And so when she conks out, I'm just starting to write. I'm just starting to get on Facebook. I'm just starting to so it's after midnight before I go to sleep.
Yeah, but what I have to say, Tina, is I admire the fact that you are supporting other writers, because a lot of what you're tweeting or retweeting is what writers are saying. If writers are saying my new book is out, my book baby is being birthed this month. Yeah. If they're saying I've been invited to this, I got an award for that, whatever they're saying, Tina is always either retweeting or tweeting with comments and chiming in. Congratulations, you go, girl. Just wonderful comments. So I'm sure the writers appreciate that.
I hope, I think, I'm sure they do. I hope so. It's kind of like you were saying about not having a mentor. We didn't have social media when I was coming up, but I did get support from the writers that were there, but not the kind of support that we can give each other now.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. Someone wise told us it's a virtual hug.
You sure did.
Like that.
Yeah. That's good. That's real good. Well, Wanda, it's time to get into the meat of the conversation. And the meat of the conversation is your book, your memoir, Coming Full Circle, From Jim Crow to Journalism. Wanda knows that her book came out 2 years ago, and if you might know that you didn't hear the term Jim Crow nearly as much. Of course, we have reason to hear it now, unfortunately, as you did before. So every time when Wanda was editing the book, and when it came out, every time I would hear Jim Crow on the TV, I would scream, Jim Crow. And then sometimes I would call her and say Jim Crow, but when you have a book out, it's an exciting time, and you want people to, to share it with you. So Wanda, before we get into the book, let's tell people a little bit, especially folks who may be just joining us, a little bit about you and your background, and then we're going to jump into the book.
Okay, well, I just want to thank you for this conversation. Tina and I were talking a few weeks ago, maybe a few days ago, about the fact that we're in our second season. We were not quite a year into our podcast. And I said, Tina, we really haven't talked about coming full circle, or the other book that you're going to hear us talk about on a future podcast, our meeting at the table, I said we really ought to tell people a little bit more about that. And so I'm really pleased that we're doing this in the month of February for Black History Month. So about me. Mm-hmm. I was an editor, a newspaper editor. I grew up knowing that I wanted to be a newspaper editor. Tina reminds people, Wanda was the only person I knew who came to Spelman. She knew exactly what she wanted to do, and she did it. So
you did. It was so impressive. It really was. I'm sure it pushed me a little to think more seriously about my career.
Well, I hope so. So I was an editor at 7 papers. I worked in 7 different locations around the country, which means I moved a lot. I've lived, I think, in my career has taken me to 8 states. I worked at the Washington Post, probably the longest time, USA Today. I retired in 2013 from daily newspapers as executive editor at the Montgomery Advertiser. So unlike a lot of people, Tina's kind of a non-traditional path. I did not start as a reporter. I started as a copy editor. Mm-hmm. I've always been an editor, never a full-time reporter. I've done quite a bit of writing, but not full-time as a reporter, which is how most people start. But I decided that that was the path that I wanted to take. And it was good for me.
We both started out as copy desk, copy editors.
Yeah. So in between, I had the opportunity to work at 4 different universities. I worked at University of Maryland when I was right at the beginning of my time at the Washington Post. I taught copy editing at night. Mm-hmm. I worked at Columbia University for an entire summer. I took a leave of absence from my first newsroom in Providence, Rhode Island, and worked at Columbia in the summer program. I was on the faculty for the summer program for minority journalists. I worked at Vanderbilt University, where I was founding executive director of the Freedom Forum Diversity Institute at Vanderbilt. It's a program to train non-traditional students for careers in journalism. And then at the end of my career, after I retired from the Montgomery Advertiser, I came back to my hometown in Savannah, and I was chair of the Department of Journalism and Mass Comm at Savannah State and associate professor. So that's my career. That's a brief description of it. And that's a large part of what the book is about.
Okay, so you're back in Savannah. You're back in your hometown. You have headed the Department of Mass Communications or Journalism?
Journalism and Mass Communications.
And Journalism and Mass Communications. Mm-hmm. Okay, and you finally retire. Your husband says, "What you're the only person he knows who has failed retirement. What two times, 3 times?"
Yeah, my family. I think my family says something like, "I failed retirement 101" because I just keep.
keep going. That's true. That's true. Okay, so you're back in Savannah, and let's get to the book. I want to know, how did you come up with it? Why a memoir? Why that book? And the question, I'll tell you, the question that I always think people ask is, what made you think that you could write a book?
I didn't. I really didn't. You know that I didn't. So as I was nearing the end of my career, I started really thinking about my legacy. I knew I wanted a legacy of some kind, but a memoir really was not at the top of my list because I wasn't sure that I could write one. And also, quite frankly, and I had this conversation with you, Tina, I wasn't even sure that I didn't think that there would be an audience of readers out there for me. I actually said to you, who cares about my career? I just went to work every day. I just had a career. There are a lot of journalists out there. But you impressed upon me my obligation to think about how I would tell my story. And so that's why a memoir and not something else. I really never had I don't think I have a novel in me. I've never really wanted to be a novelist, but I love telling stories. And there are so many as a journalist, there are so many stories about real things that happen. And that's really what I've wanted to do.
And as a journalist, that is the live story, the real story is what you want to tell. Okay, we don't want to get too much into it, but there are writers who are listening to us, who are in our audience. Can you just tell us a little quickly, kind of how you approached it? I mean, you say you want to write a memoir. What does one do? I mean, you're familiar with writing and with journalism, with publishing and all of your whole career, but now you were in another arena. And so, how does one approach that? If if they're thinking, oh, I want to write a memoir about my grandmother, I want to write something about even my own memoir. What do you do?
Well, the first thing you do is you get a really good mentor, which is what you were. You talk to some people, some writers who can tell you how to tell those stories. And I made some mistakes along the way. I wasn't sure how to tell those stories in a narrative nonfiction way. You reminded me when I showed you the first couple of chapters that you have some good stories, but stop being a journalist. I want you to write it in a way that you are describing everything around you. And even as journalists, we tell, as an editor, I coached reporters to give me some color sometimes. Tell me what's going on in the situation. What's the color of the curtains in the room if you're interviewing someone, or what was the weather like, or what was the building like that person worked in? Was it a tall skyscraper, or was it a one level? Just some color. But that same thing goes for writing. And you impressed upon me the importance of really sitting down and thinking about what were the things going on in the world, in my world, and in the world. And so I listened first, I think. And then secondly, I did a lot of reading, because I did need to remind myself of, especially early in my life, because I wasn't really, necessarily glued to the news when I was 2, 3, 4 years old, but I needed
which by the way surprises me, but okay, go ahead.
Yeah. But when I really grasped the idea that my story started in the years of Jim Crow, that's when it really hit me that was my story. My story was that I grew up in the Jim Crow era, and then I went to college during the civil rights movement. And then I pursued my career, but I was always, I believe, that Jim Crow era left something in me and on me, because it was something that I overcame. I had to overcome. We all had to overcome it. If there were things that people said we could or could not do, or where we could do it, or when we could do it, like where we go to school, or whether we could go eat lunch at a certain kind of restaurant, those kinds of things, they continue in our lives, including early in my adult life, where even though it was legal to do certain things or to go certain places, sometimes I had doubt or fear that maybe I didn't belong in a certain place, including in my career, early in my career. Well, how did I get here? I wasn't able to do these kinds of things growing up. How did I get access to having equality and working in a place where I'm sitting next to people and we're doing the same kind of work, when I had to go to school with only Black people and have substandard furniture that was old and rutted out, I describe in the book, or books
that were used.
Yeah, exactly.
Gosh, that's interesting. I don't know if we may have talked around that, but that's interesting that you should say that, because again, everything that happens to us leaves some kind of mark. Leaves something there. It's not necessarily a scar, it's still a mark, even good things.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's very interesting. I want to slip in one question to you, just because I think that I know that you thought about it a lot, and you've been in situations in the newsroom, I'm sure, where you've had to make these same kinds of decisions. And I just want to know, with the concern and the buzz and about the recent incorrectly called critical race theory and attacks on Black books, on books in library, as you've pointed out to me, books like mine or yours could be, could be censored. And so I know that that's something that, and as a former journalist, I'm sure I know that's something, the freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of writing, and freedom of expression is something that's close to you. Can you tell us something, just speak to that a little bit? From the viewpoint of your book and your experience in in Jim Crow?
Well, first of all, I think critical race theory is very subjective. I think it's whatever the person who's talking about it or thinking about it is thinking, or whatever their point of view might be. I don't know that there's ever been, Like, I don't know if anybody's ever written a policy paper on critical race and defined it that we can all agree on. You know,
Okay, we can all agree on.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
we can all
Yeah.
agree. Yeah, there's been a lot of writing about it.
Yeah.
So I was having a conversation a few days ago with my local school, some people in my local school system on the phone, on Zoom, and we were having a conversation about whether I might come and speak to some classes at my high school and some other schools and speak to faculty and all that. And at some point in the conversation, the gentleman who works for the system, one person on the call was a principal, said, well, of course, I've got to get your book and read it because we got to make sure that it's not CRT. And that was the first time it just sort of smacked me in the face that my book could be not accepted or banned or not one of the books that students should be reading. And in fact, over the course of my virtual book tour, I've had several people reach out to me who have read my book, and these aren't teachers, who said, your book should be in every classroom. You know, students should read this. Students need to know this. There's so many lessons for them. And I've always been flattered by that. And I said, yeah, from your lips to God's ears. But how do I make that happen? And it just dawned on me in this recent conversation that now with all this talk of critical race theory, that might not happen. You know, what if somebody decides that if I'm telling my story or the story about what happened in Jim Crow, that they don't want students to know about?
But that's offensive to students. The white. I'm sorry, offensive to white students. To the white students, don't want to know this. Well, I mentioned critical race theory because as you just said, it's so often misused because critical race theory is something that you study in law school, in advanced degrees, and what they're just talking about is black. They're just talking about if it's there, it's offensive, and I'm really concerned about this book thing. I posted that are we old chicks gonna have to start going to school board meetings? But I think that might be it, especially if we old chicks are authors and editors and publishers, that seems to be the only way, because the format about critical race theory is now filtering down to everything, to everything. I mean, I think that one of the things is that you just mentioned is that there probably is no book that doesn't offend somebody. There probably shouldn't be a book that doesn't offend somebody or make them think. And I think that our kids, as you and I have talked about this, our kids are just losing out.
Absolutely. Can you imagine that students would not be reading Maya Angelou?
Yes. Toni Morrison.
Yes.
I mean, don't get us started. We'll go down the whole canon, the canon that Black folks have created, not the canon that is in most universities and has been used in the past. Okay, well, I want to get back to your book, but I just wanted to get that in because I just wanted to get your thoughts on it. Tell me, is there? I want to ask you about one takeaway from your book, but I know that there are many, so I'm not going to stick you to one takeaway from reading your book. Can you tell maybe a takeaway for young people, maybe a takeaway for adults?
Oh, young people. I think the takeaway for young people is when you set your mind on something and it's really what you want to do, if it's your passion, if that's your fire in the belly, find a way to get it done. That's quicker than you thought I'd come up with that, right?
Well, yeah, absolutely. And what about for old chicks or for the rest of us who have lived a little bit?
Well, I think I have to do two for the older folks. One is to encourage young people and support young people, and tell them they can do what they want to do. But when I say support, sometimes I was watching a movie or a short film or something just last night, and the young person wanted a career in, I think it was art. And the father wanted that person to have a career in whatever he did. And it might have even been a sport, it was a sport. It was basketball. The father was a basketball player in college, and he just knew his son was going to be a basketball player, and his son wanted to be an artist and was very good at it. You have to support young people in what they are good at and what they're passionate about. Because you know, if we're not passionate about something, we're not going to do it well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we also don't want to waste time on something that you're not passionate about. I think in fact we both believe that we're always being led by our passions, being
Yeah.
led by what our heart feels, what we really want to do, what we want to leave, what mark we want to leave on the on the earth. Well, I tell you, your book has left quite
But but Tina, can I tell you one more thing for the adults,
sure.
and that's to tell your own story. And a lot of adults are saying that to me now. I didn't even think I had a story, but tell your own story. And it does not have to be a book. It does not even have to be written. It could be a video. It could be on, on social media. There are so many different ways to tell your
Isn't that the
story.
truth? It could be
Don't
photographs, music,
let
all
photograph
those ways.
perfect, but don't let somebody else tell your own story. So that would be the other piece of advice for adults.
And that comes from somebody who did not think she had a story.
I know, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Wonderful. Well, can I ask you one more thing?
Mm-hmm.
And I can't let you get away without asking this. You working on anything else? Working on anything new?
Well, I'm working on a lot of things. I'm writing for my local daily newspaper. I'm writing a twice monthly column, although I think I'm already committed to 3 columns, and
I was going to say, I think you've done 3 already.
that's not working out so well. I write for other small things as people ask me. I'm working on another project with a group of ladies who are writers and speakers and ministers, and we have decided to do a project, and Two Old Chicks podcast.
We're going to
We'll
talk
hear
about
that later, but
Thank
that's
you.
coming up very quickly. And I'm working on an outline for another book, because you keep encouraging me that I should do another book. So the outline is coming together. And so I've just got to find the time between the column and the other this and the that and the that and the that.
And Two Old Chicks, all of that.
Yes,
exactly.
Two Old Chicks, right.
We're going to help you find time, because we want that. We want that second book. We want that second book. But first, we want everyone to investigate. Just take a look at it. To investigate this book, and I'm sure that you're going to purchase it and read it, and I hope share it with other people. It's also a wonderful book for intergenerational discussions. As a matter of fact, like you said, young people can take one thing from it, older folks from another. Yeah. Well, this has been a great discussion. Thank you so much, Wanda.
Thank you so much. And I
wanted to say one other thing. The book title again is Coming Full Circle: From Jim Crow to Journalism. It's published by New South Books. There we go. And that's Wanda. At what age, Wanda? 22?
This was me at 22 years old on the copy desk at the Providence Journal in Rhode Island.
Isn't that a wonderful? That's perfect. That's a perfect picture for the cover. Thank you. All righty. As our listeners know by now, our regular listeners, we love to drop some wisdom. Old chicks love to drop some wisdom, but we have so much. So before we go, let's do that. I'll go first.
Okay.
Is that good? Okay. My wisdom today is sweet potatoes.
Oh, okay.
I learned something by accident. Yes, this week. It's been cold, I think, for just about everybody in the last week or last 2 weeks. And I like vegetables. And Wanda and I always talk about, well, did you have lettuce? I mean, did you have spinach this today? Did you have, I think you had salmon today. So we keep each other in check about really what we're eating. We also like to sneak cookies in our desk, but we also like to get our vitamins. And so I had the sweet potato, and I said, okay, this is going to be good for me. And I just put it in the oven. This was during the day, like maybe 1 o'clock. And I went outside for the first time because it's been so cold. And I said, oh, okay, I can go outside finally. It was still cold, but I go outside. And I went outside and I worked. I was going out there about maybe 45 minutes, or an hour. I came back in the house. Wanda, my house smelled like my mama's kitchen. Oh, that sweet potato smelled so good. And it was warm and comforting. And just, so I think my wisdom is, find those things, little things that comfort you. Find those things that comfort you. I mean, if y'all don't put a sweet potato in the oven and walk out the house and go to the mailbox or go for your walk this week, I don't know what you're thinking about, because when you walk back in that house, it's going to feel and smell, oh, and taste like home. Sweet potatoes is my wisdom for the week. What about you, Wanda?
Well, Tina, I had no idea that you were going to say find those things that comfort you, because that's exactly what I was going to say.
Really? I think that's good. What's your viewpoint?
My wisdom is create a place of comfort around you. Surround yourself with the things that matter to you. For me, it's books, it's art, it's sometimes fresh flowers. Sometimes some people like potted plants. I prefer fresh flowers because I don't have to take care of them for a long time. It could be
commitment, right?
Yeah, it could be pillows on the sofa that you just sort of fall into. It could be pets, because you and I we're both pet mamas.
Got pet babies, absolutely.
Yeah. So just surround yourself with the things that are of comfort to you. You don't have to spend a lot of money if you're young and you're just starting out. If it's just one of those things, if it's just a couple of big pillows, that's okay. If it's a fish tank or a fish bowl or something, but
if it's a candle that you light every day.
Exactly. I love candles. I don't have a whole lot of them, but those are the things. Music, just listening. Everybody can listen to music because it's on your phone. You can listen to YouTube or one of the free streaming services. But just surround yourself with the things that give you comfort. We talk all the time about self-care, and those are the things to me that are self-care, because when I'm walking around the house in the morning and I'm looking I might stop and look at the bookshelf and I go, oh yeah, I remember that. Or I might look at a piece of art on the wall. I go, that makes me feel so good. So that's mine. Create a place.
Great idea. That's a great wisdom. Art for me is in the same way that you look at the books. I can always look at my art and think, oh my goodness, I see something in it, or I think about the artist. That's usually what I do. I think about the artist creating that. That's a very good wisdom. Very good, Wanda. I like that. I like that. Create a place of comfort.
Well, that's it for this third episode of Two Old Chicks podcast on our season 2. And we hope you've enjoyed it. Hope you learned a lot. If you haven't already, we want you to subscribe to Two Old Chicks on Spotify and on YouTube. And tell other people that you know about the podcast. And before we let you go, we also want to remind you to learn more about the book that Tina and I co-edited, Meeting at the Table, African American Women Write on Race, Culture, and Community. You can learn more about it at downsouthpress.com.
Thank you, Wanda. Well, that's it for another podcast. I think we're wrapping this one up, Wanda.
Yep.
We'll see you soon. Bye, everybody. Love and peace.
Bye-bye. Love.